Talk about some of those free agents here in hour number 2 and how can they help their teams. Big paydays expected to have big on-the-field consequences, both good and bad, depending on where we're going to be shopping today. Donnie Rightside along with Tom Vecchio. It is pro baseball today, and we are getting you ready for opening day, which is roughly 5 weeks from today. That's all fine and good, Tom. I know the vibes are high, the energy's high, and sometimes, Tom, just talking baseball to start the season, this is the official hot stove right here on SportsGrid.
It really is. We're going to touch on, a good amount of the off-season moves. As you said, I would say that we should maybe take half a step back as we're resetting things here at the top of the hour. We have 5 weeks to lead up to the start of the season. We're going to go through the World Baseball Classic as that approaches. We're going to go team by team, breaking everything down. We'll talk about award markets, team totals, everything from top to bottom. And then, of course, some of our favorite futures, player props, you name it. But kind of re-racking things and setting the stage for the beginning of the MLB season is kind of reviewing the big moves that happen. And, let's start with some hitters, Donnie, because that is a major thing for teams bolstering or reinforcing their lineups.
Absolutely it is. And one of those big, home run boppers to drop. Kyle Schwarber was actually getting a push from, could have been the Pittsburgh Pirates, could it be his hometown team, the Cincinnati Reds? But in the end, it was, Tom, the Philadelphia Phillies. As you see the tweet by Jeff Passan here. Slugger Kyle Schwarber and the Philadelphia Phillies are finalizing a 5-year, $150 million contract. So he comes back to Philadelphia here. It was one where I would have been surprised if he left. Dave Dombrowski and also the ownership group, the Middletons, said, we can't let this guy leave. They paid him a lot of money. He stayed in Philadelphia, Tom.
He stayed. They should have paid him. It should have been much simpler than it was. They could have gotten it done weeks earlier. Like, if you want him to stay, you got to increase that number by 10 million, 15 million, whatever it is. But, they needed him in that lineup. The consistency that we've gotten, and frankly, Donnie, that park is perfect for his swing. It's what it comes down to. You want him in that type of park. You want him at the top of that lineup with Turner and with Harper. New news on Harper and quotes notwithstanding. But you want that consistency at the top of the lineup. And just the threat for a player to give you 40 and 100 every single year, that type of player in a lineup is a benefit to have and something that you need.
Absolutely. And by the way, take a look at that Phillies lineup anticipated. A lot of the same faces there. You have Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Alec Boehm, Brandon Marsh. Adolis Garcia appears there, hoping to regain some of that magic from a couple years ago. Bryson Stott, JT Realmuto, and also Justin Crawford expected to get an extended look here in spring training and into the regular season. But look at the Phillies lineup. It just would not have been the same if Schwarber wasn't in there, Tom.
It really wasn't. It really wouldn't be the same if Schwarber wasn't there. And again, having the balance at the top, knowing that you need some of the bottom guys in the lineup to step up and prove themselves. We should also note, as you mentioned, Realmuto did re-sign with the Phillies as well. So bringing back two consistent pieces, very important for the Phillies.
And why? Because we'll get to the Mets a little bit later. Mr. Bichette decided the last minute, he was going to go to the Mets. We'll get to that in just a bit here. But let's keep it in the Big Apple here, and that's the New York Yankees. Brought a big piece back to their lineup, and that was Cody Bellinger. Goes back to the Bronx. And we take a look, if you're a left-handed batter, no better place to be than hitting home runs in Yankee Stadium here for the New York Yankees. And he'll fit right back into that 3 slot there in the lineup. But Bellinger coming back to the Yanks, that one made some sense.
It really does, again, in another park that is perfect for his swing with Schwarber in Philly and Bellinger in New York. And, the Yankees not only re-signed Cody Bellinger, they also re-signed Paul Goldschmidt, a little bit of platoon at first base, whatever they're going to be doing there with Ben Rice. Again, the Yankees have largely the same lineup as they did last year, but the power that Bellinger brings and the lineup protection that he can afford to Judge and hitting behind Judge is fantastic. So when you have whoever leading off, Judge in the 2 spot, Bellinger in the 3, and then the power behind them, that's what you need in the lineup. That's what the Phillies did with Schwarber, and that's what the Yankees did with Cody Bellinger.
Yeah, some reworks in there, too. You take a look at that Yankees estimated lineup, that depth chart here, leading off Trent Grisham, followed, of course, by Aaron Judge in the 2 spot here. Cody Bellinger, Ben Rice, Giancarlo Stanton, if he can stay healthy. Jazz Chisholm Jr., a lot of boomer bust there with him. And then McMahon, who was brought over last year. We'll see what he can do, is also a left-handed bat. You want as many left-handed bats as you can get into that lineup here, Caballero, and also Austin Wells. But as we know, that MVP in that spot, if Cody Bellinger, as you said, Tom, can help protect Aaron Judge where he sees fastballs, that's a good signing for them. And there we go. 5 years, $162 million of that money coming his way.
Great deal for him.
Yeah.
Honestly, the deal that he deserves and the deal that needed to be done. And a lot of the signings this year, Donnie, took a little bit of time. Like we didn't get
They
like
did.
some fast and furious
Yep.
start to the winter meetings at the beginning of December, and like, oh, we had all these free agents signing left, right, every single day, one after another. Like some of these took weeks. It's the money that the players deserved, and they got it. Let's get the season rolling at this point. And there's still some free agents out there that still need to be signed.
Now, I tell you who's going to be a fun team to watch this year. And like a nice little hitting ballpark, depending on if the wind's blowing in or out, that's Wrigley Field. And by the way, Alex Bregman, he got paid to go over there to the Windy City. A 5-year contract, $175 million to go to Chicago here. That's a power boost in that lineup for the Cubbies.
It really is. And, you know, losing Kyle Tucker, which we'll touch on in a little bit, is,
Yep.
you know, it's its own thing. But bringing Bregman in is great. I'm a fan of the Cubs based on, you know, the lineup that they can bring us, Donnie. And, you know, when I say this, like, as I mentioned in the last segment about the Royals, being a fan of the Royals, you know, I'm a fan
Yep.
of the Cubs in terms of what they offer to us in terms of a proper betting perspective. I know that we can get good, consistent offensive production, whether it be total base props, RBIs, what have you, out of lineups like that. So I want them to succeed because that brings us something that we can look to day in and day out. So the Cubs getting Bregman is a plus for their lineup. Him, PCA, Suzuki, those guys
Yep.
can bring us offense. That means we can get props. That means we can be
Love it.
profitable.
Oh, we'll be propping up all day long in the Cubs this season here. Take a look at the first 7 guys in the lineup. Bush, Bregman, Happ, Suzuki, PCA, Nico Horner, and then Dansby Swanson. Let's go, man. More wind blowing out than blowing in this season in Chicago. We'll have some fun and watch how that plays out. At the Detroit Tigers, Gleyber Torres coming back. Now, Gleyber's always an interesting one. Gleyber Day for the New York Yankees. This guy has a lot of talent, but sometimes not the smartest at bats that he has. Real boomer bust, but he's coming back to Detroit to help bolster that lineup.
Yep, he's coming off a really good year in Detroit, and I want to say he's in for much of the same. And again, the Tigers are a team that I often look to because they have consistency, they have power, they have guys up and down the lineup that can offer us different things. And when you have Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson,
Yep.
and Kerry Carpenter, you have a ton of power in that lineup. So if you get guys on base like Torres ahead of them, they can knock them in. They get total base props, they get RBI props, whatever it is. Good signing for Detroit. I think they're going to get things moving early on offense this year.
Yeah, watch out for them. By the way, estimated lineup here: Colt Keith, Gleyber Torres, Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, Wenzel Perez, Zach McKinstry, Dylan Dingler, and Parker Meadows, man. 1 through 9 looking good for Detroit. And also those top 3 pitchers we'll get to as well, which includes the reigning back-to-back Cy Young Award winner here. How about those Seattle Mariners bringing back Josh Naylor? Great acquisition, keeping him in town here. Pay in this free agent to stay home in Seattle, Tom.
Donnie, for years, we said the same thing about the Mariners.
Where are the bats?
They have great pitching. Where's the hitting? Oh, if they just added a hitting, you know, they'd be that much better. Well, last year, you know, prior to the deadline, they went out and they acquired Josh Naylor from the Diamondbacks. They go on the run in the postseason, you know, and losing to the Blue Jays, and then they have to solidify that and re-sign Naylor, and that's what they did. So keeping him in that lineup, you know, brings the protection to Cal Raleigh, brings us the stability in the lineup that we can go to, because for so many years, Donnie, there was just not enough power. But when you have J-Rod, you have Raleigh, and now you have Naylor, we have 3 consistent options that we can look to day in and day out.
Exactly. Looking at that anticipated roundup, Brendan Donovan at the leadoff spot here. And they have Cal Raleigh, Julio Rodriguez, Josh Naylor, Randy Arozarena, Dominic Canzone, one of my favorite guys there. Bottom of the lineup, J.P. Crawford actually had a decent season, Robles, and then Colt Young. So you get that power back in the lineup. Just going to see what that year is going to look like from Cal Raleigh. If he's anything of what he was last year, that offense should roll again. It should be a very good Major League Baseball season where we wait for those young kids now to start being maturing veterans in that starting lineup for the pitching staff. That should help out a lot. But there you go. A lot of movers and shakers in Major League Baseball, a lot of money changing places here. Now we're going to take a look at some of those pitchers that change place. And also, keep going, Tom. Team to team, division by division. We will get you ready for opening day. It's our job on Pro Baseball Today. SportsGrid Network. Oh, no, it's 5 weeks away. Don't you worry. We'll get you there.
Aaron Judge, no stranger to hitting 60 home runs in a season, but we certainly aren't going to put a FanDuel win total or even DraftKings at 60. So Sam, our producer, set it at 55. Aaron Judge will hit 55 plus home runs this year. You going to buy or sell?
All right, Aaron Rodgers here.
Oh, there
Aaron,
he is.
What do you think? What do you think, Aaron? Can you hit 55? Aaron Judge, right? Got it in my head here. 55 is asking a lot, Sam. It's asking a lot. He hit 53 last year, 58 the year before, 37, but that was the year he hurt his toe in Dodger Stadium, and then, of course, 62. I got to sell this. All right, you're asking for just to be 7 home runs off the record? I mean, no, he can't keep doing this every year here. Plus, he does have an injury history there. Over the last 2 years, he's been completely healthy. I'll just say no. Between possibility of an injury, teams waking up and going, nope, not pitching to him. I'll take the under here. Although, as a Yankee fan, he better. He better, because if he don't, Yankees going to be in a lot of trouble.
So I've decided to go by the letter of the law. Sam is not going to like this. Sam is not going to like my answer. Yep. Sam, listen, Sam leaves these little loopholes in the buy or sell. 55 home runs between 55 plus the regular season, postseason, World Baseball Classic, buy. Spring training, buy. Above 55 between spring training, World Baseball Classic, regular season, and postseason. Aaron Judge will hit 55 home runs.
He didn't say this season.
He didn't say this season. He said this year. The graphic says this year.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Look, it's not only the hitters, Tom Vecchio, that get paid in Major League Baseball. The pitchers can ring that cash register and certainly improve the outcomes here. Now, if you are the Toronto Blue Jays, you came within an inch of winning a World Series over the unbeatable Los Angeles Dodgers. You just had to win one of those games in Game 6 or Game 7 at home. They weren't able to do that. So what do? Go out and give right-handed pitcher Dylan Cease a 7-year, $210 million contract to get on over to Toronto, Tom. A big move in free agency here, a lot of money. Cease could be that ace that Toronto's looking for.
Cease is a great pitcher. I've always been personally very high on the talent that Cease has. This is not to say that he's without his faults, as we all know. When Cease looks great, it is fantastic. When Cease looks bad, there's a big downside, and the walks and the home runs are an issue. In that stadium for the Toronto Blue Jays, there's some clear downside because that's a great hitter's park, Donnie, especially in the summer. If they open the roof, that can be a very favorable hitting environment. But when Cease is at his best, I believe that he is a borderline top 5-ish Cy Young finalist. I'm not going to say he's going to win the Cy Young, but he's around that level when he's truly at his best. But there's also some very clear downside, and it's a whole lot of money for a lot of years.
Take a look at that rotation here, Tom, that Toronto's going to have, at least anticipated coming up here for 2026. Gausman, Cease, Yasevich, as long as Jose Barrios and Cody Ponce. Needed Cease to get in that lineup. That's a lot of money there. Hopefully can eat those innings up, and away they go and try to repeat as AL East champions here. We'll find out. But one of the more interesting moves, Tom, of the offseason, and I loved it, when you look at Detroit, I think, Tom, we hold Detroit's lineup higher on a pedestal than most people because I love their 1 through 8. It's not really household names, but you know they can do some damage. And quite frankly, it is a pitcher's ballpark. But you always look at Tarek Skubal and go, boy, you don't want to see that guy once you get to the playoffs. And then you go to free agency, and not only do you have we don't know, we're going to play an arbitration for our top pitcher in Skubal. He gets the $30 million. You go and get Valdez, who's 32 years old, and you pay him 3 years, $115. Now you have a legitimate 1-2 punch and still have Flaherty in that lineup as well. If you're looking at a move singularly that I didn't expect to happen here and loved it, Detroit's move to get Framber Valdez, sensational for me, Tom.
I basically co-sign everything that you said. We love their lineup because we know what they can bring for us when it comes to different, props. Jack Flaherty had a rough year last year. There were some underlying metrics that I think went against him and he was a little bit unlucky. And when you have a 27 or 28% strikeout rate, you should be a little bit better than what he did last year. I think he is in for a little bit of a bounce back. But if he can be a 3 in that lineup, or in that rotation, I should say, instead of being a 2, we also got to note that they actually just re-signed Verlander this past week. So if you get Skubal number 1, now we slot in Framber Valdez as 2, then Flaherty and Verlander and Casey Mize at the back end. Now we're talking. Now we're talking with 3 consistent options, or 2 really consistent options, and 1 I think is due for a bounce back. I'm always on board with the Tigers. Great move for them. Like you said, did not expect it, but awesome signing.
Yeah, Tom, when we are looking, and again, a lot of it is, can you just play postseason baseball in the regular season? So what does that mean? Just make the playoffs at this point. And then it comes down to pitching matchups. Like, Skubal and Valdez, 1-2 healthy in the playoffs. It could be as good as any other team in Major League Baseball. Something to look forward to there for Detroit. Now, also, Boston, we talked about what they did last year, adding pieces to the puzzle, which includes on offense and also pitching. They pick up Ranger Suarez, formerly of my Philadelphia Phillies, on a 5-year deal worth $130 million. You look at the top 4 pitchers now, Tom, in that rotation for Boston. It's Crochet, it's Suarez, it's Gray, and it's Bello at this point. Love the move here, man. Ranger, underrated. Finally got paid. Good for him.
Yeah, great move bringing in Ranger Suarez. I will say I'm not very high on Sonny Gray. So to see them make another move on top of trading for Sonny Gray is what they needed to do. Yeah. And bringing in, again, like you say, an underrated pitcher who's kind of like a 1B is really what they needed. They couldn't have just traded or signed for another random pitcher to just slot in alongside Gray and Brian Bello. They needed another, sturdy, consistent guy, and that's what they have behind Crochet. So, I think Bello can be a solid pitcher if he's not asked to do too much as a 3 or a 4. Gray, I think, is in for some serious regression. He's also getting up there in age. But, they made some other trades in the offseason, which we'll get to as we go throughout the weeks discussing things team by team. But great signing for Boston. It was the best move they made all season, bringing in Ranger Suarez.
Yep, keep that back healthy, man. Crafty pitcher, can do some damage here, and certainly cool and calm under pressure, which is what you're going to need if you're pitching in Boston/New York there come that postseason time. You take a look for the San Diego Padres. They had to do this. They welcome back Michael King to a 3-year contract through 2028 for the Padres. Here we take a look at their estimated starting lineup for their pitchers: Tom King, Pivetta, Musgrove, Vasquez, and German Marquez in that starting lineup.
Going to be interesting what we see from the Padres, because Joe Musgrove didn't pitch last year. German Marquez goes from Colorado to San Diego. German Marquez has been a good pitcher, dating back a couple of years, all things considered, when you look at his, stats outside of Coors Field, or even some of his stats in Coors Field, pretty good. Getting him away from there and having him be the back end can actually be very beneficial for him instead of being the frontline starter for the Rockies. So the Padres have talent. I still just want to see it play out, essentially. I'm still a little bit low on the Padres when it's all said and done.
Yeah, what's the funny part about the Padres too is, like, the old ownership group, the previous owner did pass away, but they were saying, you know what, we're going to dip into this arms race here and see if we can go toe to toe with, like, the Giants and, more importantly, the Los Angeles Dodgers. It just feels like they backed away a little bit from that at this point. Now the lineup's still going to be good. You take a look at their 1 through 9: Tatis, Merrill, Machado, Laureano, Sheets, and Bogarts, and Cronenworth. We get those here, but this is one of those teams that we felt, Tom, that was going to go toe to toe in payroll with the Dodgers until the Dodgers, like, you know what? Check what we can do out. You want to match this? And the Padres like, we're not doing any of that.
Yeah, there was a rising tide with the Padres when they get Machado, they trade for Soto. You're like, okay, we are in for a new era of Padres baseball that are going to be, these competing giants with the Dodgers, not the Giants, but a competing threat with the Dodgers. And then they, like you said, they eased off the gas a little bit. Like, if you are going down a path, you have to commit to that, and they just do so.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how it shapes up. But again, you don't want to get in that arms race. And the Colorado Rockies, like, why should we spend any money at all to do anything? It doesn't make any sense. But that's the way it sets up. Well, you got to be in it to win it. You need that payroll to match those Dodgers, and certainly good luck with that. Oh, no, look at all that Dodgers talk. We haven't really talked all that much Dodgers. Get ready, because we're going to hit it next. Who did they pay in the offseason, and how much money did they spend? Yeah, come on.
Aaron Judge, no stranger to hitting 60 home runs in a season, but we certainly aren't going to put a FanDuel win total or even DraftKings at 60. So Sam, our producer, set it at 55. Aaron Judge will hit 55 plus home runs this year. You going to buy or sell?
All right, Aaron Rodgers here.
Oh, there
Aaron,
he is.
What do you think? What do you think, Aaron? Can you hit 55? Aaron Judge, right? I got it in my head here. 55 is asking a lot, Sam. It's asking a lot. He hit 53 last year, 58 the year before, 37, but that was the year he hurt his toe in Dodger Stadium, and then of course 62. I gotta sell this. All right, you're asking for just to be 7 home runs off the record. I mean, no, we can't keep doing this every year here. Plus, he does have an injury history there. Over the last 2 years, he's been completely healthy. I'll just say no. Between possibility of an injury, teams waking up and going, nope, not pitching to him. I'll take the under here. Although as a Yankee fan, he better, because if he don't, Yankees gonna be in a lot of trouble.
So I've decided to go by the letter of the law. Sam is not going to like this. Sam is not going to like my answer. Yep. Sam, listen. Sam leaves these little loopholes in the buy or sell. 55 home runs between 55 plus the regular season, postseason, World Baseball Classic. Buy. Spring training. Buy. Above 55 between spring training, World Baseball Classic, regular season, and postseason. Aaron Judge will hit 55 home runs.
Such a lawyer in another life.
He didn't say this season. He said this year. The graphic says this year.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
You want some Dodgers talk? You came to the right place for a little bit of Dodgers talk here. Now, the fun thing about the Dodgers is they operate in a different landscape than any other team in Major League Baseball. It seems like no matter how much money they spend, it just doesn't matter. It's endless here. And the way they structure their contracts to get a superstar team to avoid maybe the highest luxury tax, nothing short of genius. Anybody in Major League Baseball can do this, and that's always a proven point. Will it be good for baseball? We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But if you were watching the Dodgers offseason, it started with Kyle Tucker's 4-year, $240 million contract. That's not an error, people. That's not 14. That's 4 years, 240 with opt-outs, $60 million per year. And the funny part about this is we'll talk the Mets in the next segment here. The Mets were hot on Tucker's tail until the Dodgers just pulled up with the most ridiculous offer you can have. And by the way, it worked. He's a Dodger.
You know, every time I see one of these signings for the Dodgers, you know, I remember a Gatorade commercial from the mid-2000s, which was Michael Jordan and Mia Hamm, and it was anything you can do, I can do better, which was like the theme of the commercial. And that's just what it is. Anything someone else can do, the Dodgers, they can just do it better. Where 5 years, $200 million? Oh, 5 years, $250? No, we'll give you 4 years and $240 million, $60 million a year. Anytime some team offers X player Y contract, the Dodgers just come in with Z and go over the top. That's just what it comes down to. And we've seen them do this for a number of years now. It started with Ohtani. Or I should say it really started when they signed Betts. They signed Freddie Freeman, or they traded for Betts. They signed Freddie Freeman. They signed Ohtani. Things just keep happening, and the Dodgers are pushing all chips to the middle every single offseason.
And Tom, they're not even team-friendly deals. They're all player-friendly, which is all on top of, like, if he's really bad and injured, he's guaranteed $60 million a year for 4 years. If he's unbelievable, he opts out there year 2 and goes, I'd like $70 million a year. And the Dodgers, hey, you know what? That makes a lot of sense at this point. That's how crazy it is. It's like, oh, well, the team's got him over a barrel. No, he can opt out and do whatever he wants if he's having an even better season. Incredible to take a look at this. How about this Bill Lucy tweet that we have? The Dodgers' 2026 projected payroll is $429 million, $360 million more than the lowest projected payroll in Major League Baseball, the Marlins. Baseball, there is a discrepancy gap, unlike the NFL and the NBA. You pay to play, and apparently it has back-to-back champions and maybe a third on the way for the Dodgers.
It's absolutely unbelievable that seeing where some of those bottom 5 teams are, we're going to see tweets throughout the year, and I can already tell that the combined salary of the starting lineup plus the pitcher for X team does not even equate to 1 or 2 of the players combined for the Dodgers. Like, that's what we're going to see. Like, oh, Tucker and Ohtani, their combined salaries is 3 or 4x the entire starting lineup of the team that they're facing. The discrepancy is massive. Obviously, we'll talk about this in one of the closing segments as it pertains to the future, but a very important topic for baseball now and moving forward.
Tom, look at this lineup. We're handicappers here. We deal in numbers. Like, yeah, the Dodgers should win their majority of games, but how much are you going to pay for those games that you have? Minus 180, minus 280, minus 380. The 1 through 9 expected here as the depth chart for the Dodgers. Ohtani, Betts, Tucker, Freeman, Smith, Muncy, Hernandez, Pages, and Kim as a 1 through 9. Good luck pitchers, no breathers in that lineup.
It's really not. And of course, as you said, we're handicappers. What does that mean? What do we look for? Donnie, my mind immediately goes to Ohtani, Betts, Tucker, the 3 of them for the HRR market, the hit plus run plus RBI. A 3 may not even get you to minus 120, right? We may be looking at games where the 3 of them, you're still sitting at minus 170 for an HRR, Ohtani, Betts, Tucker. You may have to add in that 4th leg just to get to plus 100. That's what where my mind goes to, because there are times where we love the 2. Sometimes you get a 2, but the 3 is really the sweet spot. You can get 2 at minus 115, sign me up, or 3, I should say, minus 115. We may not get that with the Dodgers.
Like, you look at the RBI props, like what it would be for Freddie Freeman with Tucker, Betts, and Ohtani in front of him. Like, we're not even talking about playing in Coors Field, just absolutely outrageous. And where would that market be just to score a run? Like, hey, take Ohtani to score a run. What is it, minus 380 for him to score a run? At this point, he gets on base. You're certainly going to be able to get knocked in by themselves. And then, Tom, you take a look at the starting pitchers. You're like, oh, they have a good lineup, but a little bit lacking at pitching. Yamamoto, Snell, Glasnow, Ohtani, Sheehan, and Sasaki. What? These are the Monstars recreated, Tom.
It really is. And to see what they have to bring in terms of reinforcements and some of the young talent that they have in the minors is unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. You know what else is unbelievable, too? Maybe the part that you could get after the Dodgers with last year was the bullpen. Wait till we tell you what they added to the bullpen and which team it actually hurt in the National League. We got all bases covered here. We'll be right back.
Aaron Judge, no stranger to hitting 60 home runs in a season, but we certainly aren't going to put a FanDuel win total or even DraftKings at 60. So Sam, our producer, set it at 55. Aaron Judge will hit 55 plus home runs this year. You going to buy or sell?
All right, Aaron Rodgers here.
Oh, there
Aaron,
he is.
What do you think? What do you think, Aaron? Can you hit 55? Aaron Judge, right? Got it in my head here. 55 is asking a lot, Sam. It's asking a lot. He hit 53 last year, 58 the year before, 37, but that was the year he hurt his toe in Dodger Stadium, and then, of course, 62. I got to sell this. All right, you're asking for just to be 7 home runs off the record? I mean, no, he can't keep doing this every year here. Plus, he does have an injury history there. Although the last 2 years, he's been completely healthy. I'll just say no. Between possibility of an injury, teams waking up and going, nope, not pitching to him, I'll take the under here. Although, as a Yankee fan, he better. He better, because if he don't, Yankees going to be in a lot of trouble.
So I've decided to go by the letter of the law. Sam is not going to like this. Sam is not going to like my answer. Yep. Sam, listen, Sam leaves these little loopholes in the buy or sell. 55 home runs between 55 plus the regular season, postseason, World Baseball Classic, buy. Spring training, buy. Above 55 between spring training, World Baseball Classic, regular season, and postseason. Aaron Judge will hit 55 home runs. He didn't say this season. He didn't say this season. He said this year. The graphic says this year.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
The Mets' eventful offseason, which typically means like, hey, they pay a lot of money for players. They did, and we'll get to that. But they also were thinking maybe addition by subtraction, if that makes some sense. Edwin Diaz has been a lights-out closer for them. Oh, he should be really good this year up in New York. Yeah, he's not going to be in New York. You know where he's at? Oh, that's right, Tom. The Dodgers got him. 3 years, $69 million. The one thing, again, as I said before the break, you could poke holes in a little bit was the Dodgers bullpen. Not anymore, apparently, Tom.
You know, we started the opening segment talking about the Dodgers and the World Series, and you alluded to the fact that Yamamoto came out of the bullpen during the World Series to bring some life to it just because they needed it. And obviously he was fantastic. He wins, World Series MVP. But, that was the biggest, kind of bugaboo for the Dodgers, where they actually blew some leads in August, and they went through a little bit of a rough stretch just because the bullpen just wasn't, up to par, compared to some other teams. And they go out and address that. They also, it's not just addressing it, it's also they take that player away from a team that should be theoretically competing with them, right? Like if you take a player away from the Padres, the Mets, the Braves, the Phillies, and bring them to the Dodgers, it not just even makes the Dodgers even that much better. It actually weakens the team that should be threatening them to win the NL title. So a fantastic move for the Dodgers, but bad stuff for the Mets.
Yeah, take a look at the Mets. The one thing I never thought was going to happen, Tom, over the past couple of years, it seems like Pete Alonso is just made to be a Met. Franchise guy will always be there, like a David Wright, right? And now you take a look and say, well, how did they treat Pete Alonso last year? It's like, man, he came down to like the wire. Nobody's really giving good offers. Sort of came back to the Mets because that was like the only contract he could take. And now you find themselves without Pete Alonso altogether. Why? He signed with the Baltimore Orioles, Tom. 5 years, $155. Goes to a good hitting ballpark. I never thought the Mets would let go Pete Alonso, and they did.
I was shocked to see this. Frankly, I was shocked. And something about it doesn't add up to me. When you have Steve Cohen, the owner, who has a mentality, or I'm going to say a perceived mentality, that he wants to be the big spender, that he wants to push all chips to the middle. If Pete Alonso's agent goes to Steve Cohen and says, this is the offer that we have from X team, to me, the Steve Cohen mentality should be, okay, let's just slap $15 million on that. He's getting $5 and $155. Let's just slap $15 million on it. We'll give you $5. We'll bump it up. Oh, we'll bump it up another $10 million. We'll give you $5, $175. Whatever it is, that should be the Steve Cohen mentality, that we're just going to keep adding on to retain the guys that we want. But that's not the case. That hasn't been the case. They haven't been willing to get the highest priced free agents, and they're also losing talent with not having Pete Alonso.
No, you're right. And it's one of those where, like, Pete Alonso, it's hard to get power bats in Major League Baseball. It is. And a homegrown one, when you're supposed to have unlimited funds. I didn't think it would get to this point, but you thought it was kind of interesting, as I pointed out, where the negotiations over the past couple of years were like, oh, we're going to get this done. We're going to pay him a lot of money. It was like, let's try to nickel and dime this guy. And eventually he goes and leaves for the Baltimore Orioles. But the Mets did make some moves, Tom, to help out their team, which included not a free agent move, but how about a trade? Marcus Semien for Brandon Nimmo here. That was an interesting one that went down. Semien brings a little bit more power. Nimmo out and heads to Texas. I actually like this move for both of these ball plugs with Semien now in the Big Apple.
Yeah, I would agree that this is a good move for both teams. Obviously, Semien's getting up there in age, but, looking at some of his numbers from last year, he certainly struggled. The power isn't what it once was, but where he slots into the lineup, I think will be the most interesting thing, because Lindor, Soto, we know what they can bring. They also, we'll get to another one of the trades that the Mets made, but also the signing that we're about to talk about. I think Semien will be in a good spot in the lineup, and I think he won't be asked to do too much, and I think that will benefit him.
I like the Mets lineup. I do. Maybe not where they fit in the field, which we'll get to that in just a few moments, but just those names in the lineup that should be able to do some damage. Now, it is a pitcher's ballpark. We get that, but certainly those guys will be able to do some damage. Now, also, there is fallout across Major League Baseball that sometimes starts with the Los Angeles Dodgers. When they pick up Tucker for that big contract, when the Mets were looking at Tucker, they immediately pivoted to Bo Bichette, who in the 12th hour had a deal in place with the Philadelphia Phillies. And Dave Dombrowski said he woke up the following morning and saw, like on TV, that Bichette had signed with the New York Mets. Now, that's the Phillies' fault. The Phillies still running that old school mentality of, we'll give you a lot of years, we're not going to give you any opt-outs and a lot of money. And the Mets came in with that same move that Tucker went out to the Dodgers. Hey, we're going to pay you a ton and give you your opt-outs. And it turns out Bo Bichette did sign with the New York Mets. 3 years, $126 million. They lost Tucker. They spent that money on Bichette.
I think it's a good signing for the Mets. There's not really a whole lot of downside. It is a lot of money per year. There are the opt-outs there, but if you lose Pete Alonso and then you miss out on Tucker, you have to make a move, and you have to make a big move. And some of this obviously is just to keep the fan base at bay. Like, that's just what it comes down to me. Trading for Simeon is nice. Trading for Luis Robert is nice. But you have to make a splashing move just to keep the fan base at least somewhat happy to start the season. And Bichette's an awesome player. That's what it comes down to. He was great last year. So getting him to the Mets is only a boost for them when they needed it most.
Guy hits for average and power, man. We wanted him in Philadelphia to sort of change some things up, but status quo in Philadelphia. Why? Because the Mets were willing to spend, and also the Mets were willing to do what the Phillies weren't. Give him the opt-out clauses that he wanted. Again, it works in his favor. I stink, I stay and get paid. I'm really good, I opt out and get paid probably more by somebody else. The Mets were willing to do that. The Phillies weren't. The only question is, where are all these players going? Because how about this? Jorge Polanco also goes to the Mets. 2 years, $40 million. Can everybody play second base here? How about that?
Bichette, Simeon, Polanco, really interesting, and Brett Beatty, which they still have. Interesting dynamic for them. The report is that Jorge Polanco is going to be playing first base, a position he has literally never played in his 9 years of MLB service time. So that's going to be interesting. So he's playing first. Bo Bichette apparently is going to be playing third base for the Mets. How it all works out, do they change things on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis? Probably, but I'm really interested in what their lineup brings from an offensive perspective, and I think it's going to be good this year.
No, I do. And again, Mets obviously a rival to the Philadelphia Phillies. And the way we think of things, not always on like the money line, Tom, for the game itself, but how can you look at that lineup and stack it together? It's a good-looking lineup for the Mets. They might not field their position all that well, Tom, but they're going to hit their position here. Estimated 1 through 8 here. Lindor, Soto, Bichette, Polanco, Simeon, Beatty, Alvarez, and then Luis Robert Jr. comes over here from the White Sox, maybe a change of scenery type deal. There's a lot of talent now in that Mets lineup that you can do some daily damage with.
Absolutely. Bit of a reclamation project for Luis Robert, whose name has been on the trade block or within trade rumors for a number of deadlines at this point. So it's finally good to see him get moved. If he can stay healthy, again, line of protection will only benefit him for, reaching that true ceiling, when he came over as a prospect to the White Sox.
By the way, we were talking about building that bullpen up here for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Even though Diaz did leave the Mets and goes to the Dodgers, they made some moves here in the offseason. Devin Williams stays in the same city. I thought Devin Williams would be that back-breaking closer that you just couldn't get by. He struggled in New York, particularly with the Yankees. Now he comes over and is going to be playing for the Mets. Luke Weaver, Luis Garcia, and Tobias Myers all coming over. So the Mets spending a lot of money and reformulating that team.
Yeah, I would say when it comes to looking at the bullpen for the Mets, top to bottom, listen, as a Yankees fan, I've said it before, Devin Williams, to me, I still think he has the talent. I think he just had the yips last year. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. It's just like when a field goal kicker just doesn't have it. He's just missing kicks. Yeah. I'm not going to say he's past his prime. I don't think Devin Williams is, but I think there was just too much pressure put on him, and a change of scenery, albeit very small, will benefit him. Also, knowing that he doesn't have to be the guy every single time out there will also help.
Traded a couple prospects and even brought over Freddie Peralta, the lead dog there in Milwaukee. So as Tom, as you point out, Milwaukee is a really good team. You weaken them, you add it to the same league, per se, in the National League, and you add it to the Mets, and away they go. I like the moves that the Mets made this offseason, Tom. Spent some money, gave up some prospects, got a better team out of it.
Peralta, McLean, Patterson, Holmes, Minaya, and Senga. Pretty good starting rotation. The front line, what the Mets needed with Peralta, they went out and got.
Yep. Now we're having so much fun talking about Major League Baseball. Where's it going to go in 2026? Then the question's going to be is, baseball in 2027, 2028, what's that going to look like? Tom and Donnie, we'll talk about it next.
Aaron Judge, no stranger to hitting 60 home runs in a season, but we certainly aren't going to put a FanDuel win total or even DraftKings at 60. So Sam, our producer, set it at 55. Aaron Judge will hit 55 plus home runs this year. You going to buy or sell?
All right, Aaron Rodgers here.
Oh, there
Aaron,
he is.
What do you think? What do you think, Aaron? Can you hit 55? Aaron Judge, right? Got it in my head here. 55 is asking a lot, Sam. It's asking a lot. He hit 53 last year, 58 the year before, 37, but that was the year he hurt his toe in Dodger Stadium, and then of course 62. I gotta sell this. All right, you're asking for just to be 7 home runs off the record. I mean, no, we can't keep doing this every year here. Plus, he does have an injury history there. Over the last 2 years, he's been completely healthy. I'll just say no. Between possibility of an injury, teams waking up and going, nope, not pitching to him. I'll take the under here. Although as a Yankee fan, he better, because if he don't, Yankees gonna be in a lot of trouble.
So I've decided to go by the letter of the law. Sam is not going to like this. Sam is not going to like my answer. Yep. Sam, listen. Sam leaves these little loopholes in the buy or sell. 55 home runs between 55 plus the regular season, postseason, World Baseball Classic. Buy. Spring training. Buy. Above 55 between spring training, World Baseball Classic, regular season, and postseason. Aaron Judge will hit 55 home runs.
Such a lawyer in another life.
He didn't say this season. He said this year. The graphic says this year.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Baseball Armageddon. Are we heading there? That's the question that we're going to ask. Tom Vecchio, Donnie, Rightside here, Pro Baseball Today on a Sunday morning, getting you ready for the Major League Baseball season. We know, Tom, we're going to play it this year. The only question is, will we start on time the following year? And if I ask you that question up front before we get into it, I think we're getting a delay, Tom. What do you think?
April 1st, 2027, will there be baseball being played? My answer is yes. It comes down to that there's too much at stake at this point, and there's been too much growth, especially that we have seen when it comes to the international markets, with Ohtani being a megastar on an international level, seeing what we have really developed over the past few years. There's too much at stake for both the owners and the players to let this slip. Is there going to be a significant amount of work that needs to take place? Yes. Are there going to having to be compromises on both sides? Yes. And there's a ton that needs to be fixed. But April 1st, 2027, I believe games will be being played.
Here's what's going to be tough about this, too, because like negotiations in the NBA, Tom, when free agency hits, what happens? They all signed up immediately. Same thing in the NFL. Of course, you're going to have the backup guard signed a month and a half later. I get it. But Major League Baseball procrastinates on everything. I don't think they're working on anything. And once you have the CBA ending, because from Chatterbox Sports here, that tweet, it's going to get ugly this offseason for Major League Baseball. Why, it says? Because the current CBA expires at 11:59 p.m. on December 1st, 2026, which means this coming December. But yes, you do have all of December and all of January and February to get going. But when we talk about getting going, if there's any delay, these guys won't be ready for spring training. There is no way that Major League Baseball comes to an agreement in enough time for me, Tom, to start spring training, which means they'll push it back. Because you can't just come to an agreement, let's just say, on March 20th and be like, hey, April 1st, we're playing baseball and away we go. There is going to be a delay. But here's the issue that we have. It always comes back, Tom, to the Los Angeles Dodgers. And you want to spend a lot of money, that's all fine and good. But it feels like the Dodgers could have slowly incremented and spent their money and said, the next 5 years we'll increase it. But it feels like they're throwing it in the rest of Major League Baseball's face. They just won 2 World Series, and they paid out-of-pocket $60 million contracts, an unbelievable lineup here. It can't be good for baseball, Tom. So let's start with the Dodgers. Do you feel like they're the direct derivative of, yes, we have endless money, you don't, we'll keep spending it, as opposed to being a fair, friendly market participant with everybody else going, hey, stop signing so many people over there?
I think it's parts of anything. Donnie, this is the way I would phrase it. I'm a Yankees fan, you're a Phillies fan. I think that you would agree that deep down, we know our teams, they'll be competitive. Like they will be in it when it's all said and done. They may not win, they may not get to the World
Yes.
Series every year, but at least we have hope, right? Like we have a
Yeah.
level of expectation. And
Correct.
I would say that the Cubs can say that, the Mets can say that, some of the Braves, some of these other teams, like fans of those teams, we can say that every single year. But there's a lot of teams that go into every year saying, like, we just don't have any hope. We just don't have any hope. Maybe you can make a miracle run. Like 2 years ago, the Royals made the playoffs, right? Can they make the playoffs this year? Yes. Is it a lock that they're going to make the playoffs? No, of course not. And ultimately, do they have enough hope to even get to the World Series? And I say no. And I say no for a lot of teams across the league where there's just not a lot of hope year in and year out. And that's the issue.
Yeah.
Knowing that your team can be competitive is one thing. Knowing that your team has no shot is the opposite end. And that is a terrible spot to be for a lot of franchises.
It really is. And it's a shame, too, because sometimes just a byproduct of the market you live in or the market you cheer for. Like, if you're a Dodgers fan, you love this. Every year you're signing guys. Same thing with the Yankees of the past at this point, even like Uncle Steve there for the New York Mets, and even Middleton for me for the Philadelphia Phillies. If you put a hard cap in, that means 25 other teams start to catch up to your team because you can't outspend them. Same thing, always take a look at my fandom with the Philadelphia Flyers under Ed Snyder before Comcast bought the team. They were top 3 in payroll every single year. If they made a mistake, they overpaid to get a player who could overcome the mistake they just made. You can't do that anymore, and the Flyers absolutely stink because you actually have to have a good organization, not just the deepest checkbook at this point for me. But if I look at Major League Baseball, Tom, and what we say is fair and not fair, like the NFL has probably the best structure. We're all in it together. Yes, some teams have more cash than others, but every single year, you have a legitimate chance on like a 2 to 3 year cycle to say, we absolutely stink. Hey, in 2 to 3 years, we're in the playoffs. You don't have that in Major League Baseball. Like, imagine waking up again as a Pittsburgh Pirates fan. You go, I'm going to have the best pitcher in baseball. My owner goes, enjoy the ballpark and enjoy this kid for 5 years because once he's at his arbitration, we're going to deal him away. It's almost not fair. So for me, I would actually like to see a competitive balance, which would raise the floor. But let me ask you this, Tom, on that raising the floor as well. I don't understand sometimes how the union in Major League Baseball is so top-heavy and it works. Because if you are the actual Major League Baseball owners themselves, don't you get to the guys like your top 5 guys on your team are going to make bank. But the rest of the 20 are just fighting, scraping, and surviving year to year, rookie minimums, veteran minimums here. Why can't you get to those players who are like, I will triple your salary if you guys agree to this sort of pay structure, and it'll beat the guys up top that make hundreds of millions of dollars?
It's a tough dynamic. I've always said that there need to be more guardrails put in place essentially for salary cap, salary floor. I also think that teams should be disqualified from any type of revenue sharing if they don't meet certain standards. If they don't have a roster that has X amount of salary worth, if they don't have X amount of fans in the stands, I think those things should disqualify them from revenue sharing. If you are putting a competitive team on the field, fans will show up. If you're putting a competitive team on the field, that means the players are of X quality. That means you have to pay them a certain amount, and then fans will show up. So if you can't maintain a certain level of average fan capacity or some type of metric, that disqualifies you from revenue sharing. Therefore, it incentivizes the team to spend more and get the best players out on the field.
It's amazing, Tom, and you're 100% right, because you take a look at organizations that are incentivized, as you say, to not spend money. So let's just say the Marlins and or the Pittsburgh Pirates don't spend money. The Dodgers spend a ton of money. The Dodgers then have to supplement Miami, who makes Miami one of the more profitable teams in the league, despite having no payroll, nobody in the stands, and nobody cares. It doesn't make any sense. You need to incentivize winning and putting a good product out there. There has to be a floor. Because the one thing we say about the NFL, right, and you can get around the salary cap. If you have an owner that's got deep pockets, a lot of cash, you can just restructure contracts as you go. But there is a floor in the NFL that you just can't say, hey, I'm looking to tank out and just get all this TV money, and I don't care if my team is any good. Something has to be a happy medium. But as we said also, Tom, the Major League Baseball union, the most powerful players union in the world, they usually win these arguments here, and they're willing to sit out entire seasons like we saw back in 1994. More Hot Topics on the way right here on a Pro Baseball Today edition in February. Yeah, you got that right.
Aaron Judge, no stranger to hitting 60 home runs in a season, but we certainly aren't going to put a FanDuel win total or even DraftKings at 60. So Sam, our producer, set it at 55. Aaron Judge will hit 55 plus home runs this year. You going to buy or sell?
All right, Aaron Rodgers here.
Oh, there
Aaron,
he is.
What do you think? What do you think, Aaron? Can you hit 55? Aaron Judge, right? Got it in my head here. 55 is asking a lot, Sam. It's asking a lot. He hit 53 last year, 58 the year before, 37, but that was the year he hurt his toe in Dodger Stadium, and then of course 62. I gotta sell this. All right, you're asking for just to be 7 home runs off the record. I mean, no, we can't keep doing this every year here. Plus, he does have an injury history there. Over the last 2 years, he's been completely healthy. I'll just say no. Between possibility of an injury, teams waking up and going, nope, not pitching to him. I'll take the under here. Although as a Yankee fan, he better, because if he don't, Yankees gonna be in a lot of trouble.
So I've decided to go by the letter of the law. Sam is not going to like this. Sam is not going to like my answer. Yep. Sam, listen. Sam leaves these little loopholes in the buy or sell. 55 home runs between 55 plus the regular season, postseason, World Baseball Classic. Buy. Spring training. Buy. Above 55 between spring training, World Baseball Classic, regular season, and postseason. Aaron Judge will hit 55 home runs.
Such a lawyer in another life.
He didn't say this season. He said this year. The graphic says this year.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Tom Vecchio, Donnie, Rightside here, and us. This is the home to be every single Sunday. And a lot of times, Tom, we didn't start these Sunday fun days till a week before the season started. But we have that extra ramp up. We'll have plenty of previews, Tom, per team. We'll have plenty of bets that we're like season long. And also, when those hot topics come out, like players sign, players get injured, spring training games, Tom, going to be starting up later this week.
They are. They're going to be starting up. We're going to have baseball every weekend once we get underway. Pitchers and catchers reporting, World Baseball Classic. Just want to give people a little bit of an overview of how I'm approaching, or how I approach really every offseason as we get to this point of the year. We're going to start getting spring training games. We're going to start getting data on these players. Pitchers are only going to pitch 1.2 innings. Next time it's going to be 2.1. Very small sample size. For me, it's a little bit more about the hitters. Do we see good exit velocity from the hitters? Because in baseball, Donnie, as you know, we get every possible sample size. We have a veteran who was terrible last year, has an amazing spring training. Game 1 of 162 rolls around at the end of March, and then they're terrible. It's like, oh, well, they were amazing spring training. So we want to take everything, and we're going to get pitchers who are terrible, then they turn out to be great. Pitchers who are great, and they turn out to be terrible, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, it's looking at as much information as possible. And Donnie, we also really didn't touch on the ABS system, for pitchers and what that means. But I'm going to be paying attention a lot to that, and that's going to determine a lot of how I approach early season pitcher props. Hitter props, I think I'll be okay with from day one, but pitcher props, I'm probably going to ease off of things to start.
You know what I'm going to like about this, too? Like, I eventually want to get to the robo-umpires, because I also think that helps Major League Baseball, because most strike zones aren't incredibly small. Most umpires are lenient on the outside. Hey, you hit the pitcher's mitt here, you're 6 inches off the plate, I give you the strike. That's not going to happen at this point. Now, the ABS that comes into this year, Tom, you only get 2 of those here, and then I think they tack an extra one on an extra innings regardless if you used your 2 or not. That'll be one thing to watch it play out. But also, Tom, like we talk about the betting evolution of a Major League Baseball season. Taking more of those dogs in the month of April here because teams are always up. They're trying to win. Other teams aren't figured out how their bullpen is or how their lineup's going to have and stretching out pitchers. The one thing I always remind myself, like I get so excited, and then opening day comes around, Tom, and there's 3 games that are postponed because it's 32 degrees and snow. Like, I can't wait until we get to like May where you start to get those 70, 75, 80s and that hitting weather coming into summer. I always get a kick out of early April. It's like, hey, why aren't they hitting? Dude, it's 40 degrees out with a hammer throwing 97 miles an hour coming out of the bullpen. It always struggles. So I always get amused by myself because you see spring training Yeah, it's designed to be the Cactus League and the Grapefruit League, which is warm weather. And they're like, hey, man, we got to go back to Philadelphia and New York, and it's freezing at this part. So I always get a kick out of these guys are hot. Now they're going to be freezing cold because of the temperatures that they're going to be in.
It really is. I will say, part of me does like that. As annoying as it can be when we're betting on props, we want hitters to come through, whatever it be.
Yeah.
But, seeing a Wednesday game on April 5th, 6th, 7th, whatever it is, a Wednesday game at 1 p.m., that's exciting. So even though it's going to be cold weather, even though, whether it's Minnesota, Detroit, Cincinnati, Cleveland, we're going to get cold weather across the board. That is still exciting. That does present an opportunity to take some unders, which obviously is not the most exciting thing, especially in a field like Wrigley, which we know could be very impacted by cold weather and wind. We're going to be paying attention to all those things. And, if people are new here, once we get into the Sundays where we have games, Donnie, we should let the people know. We run through every single game on the slate.
Oh, yeah.
We touch on lineups as they come out, pitching changes if needed, the weather, the news and notes for that. And then we end the show with our favorite bets for the day. We have some fun segments where we like to take dogs. We look at home run props, but we touch on every single game, every single Sunday.
You know what's going to be nice, too? Because usually it's like, hey, you guys have a 5-week ramp-up to the regular season. The WBC is going to start, which means very competitive baseball. Not with, hey, I never heard of that guy before. The best players in the world playing for their countries here. So some fun along the way where it's not just like, hey, guys, how many times can you preview the New York Mets coming into the season? No, we have actual baseball that we can talk about and certainly keep you updated on all the hottest topics coming out of spring training. Which pitcher looks good? Which young kid's going to be able to crack the lineup? What are the best prospects in baseball? We got time to get you ready for opening day. But it feels like, Tom, opening day today was started on the SportsGrid Network, getting the bells and the whistles out here, getting the flow back, talking Major League Baseball. It sort of gets me excited because, I love the NFL, I do. But Major League Baseball, for how long it goes and how many games every single day, thank you for Major League Baseball because I missed it here, and now it's finally back in our lives. Feels good.
It does, and there are a lot of exciting young players coming up this year that can make a name for themselves. We'll touch into all those award markets, team totals, props, you name it. We'll cover it all in the next 5 weeks.
Yeah, and Tom's basically talking about Andrew Painter of the Philadelphia Phillies looking to crack that rotation to be dominant along with Justin Crawford. But hey, maybe Tom could be talking about somebody else. That's the way I took it. But that'll do it for edition 1 this season of Pro Baseball Today on the SportsGrid Network. For Donnie Rightside, Tom Vecchio. See you next Sunday.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
The Buffalo Bills have to find a new head coach. Take a look at the leaders right now. A 33% chance Brian Dable takes that job. You say, well, why? Wait a second here. He's the head coach of the New York Giants. Did you know he came from the Buffalo Bills and basically resurrected Josh Allen on that MVP trajectory while he was with the Buffalo Bills? Clay Kubiak, Joe Brady, Davis Webb, all offensive guys, which I agree with.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The outline for Koepka are fantastic. I think it's perfect. It is punitive, but it's fair. You've got to levy some sort of fine, so to speak, for defecting, and I think they've done a wonderful job of being equitable and punishing him a bit at the same time. I think Brooks ultimately wants to be playing with the best.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
This is the fear that we had going on. And the players obviously were paid $10,000 to $30,000 per fix. But what this does is it hits at the core of the identity in the sport, especially in the modern day betting era.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.